Hey everybody, it's Party Elite, and today we're taking a look at the brand new DLC for Crusader Kings 3, Fate of Iberia. Though flavor packs can be somewhat limited in scope as far as geographical spread is concerned, this one introduces quite a game-changing element to its primary region, and I thought a video going over some details of said element would help everybody get up to speed a little faster. The game does a decent job of describing most of the new aspects, but there are certain specific elements that I wanted to highlight, elements that might easily be missed or that might otherwise take some trial and error to figure out. If you haven't grabbed the DLC for yourself yet, you can use the link in the description and pinned comment down below to pick it up, and don't hesitate to check out the Great Starts video I've linked at the end of this video and down below if you're looking for some creative options despite what seems like a limited scope for this DLC. Now, with no more time to waste, let's begin. Getting involved. The focal point of this DLC is, as you may have guessed, the Iberian Peninsula, and with a new struggle mechanic, the war for the peninsula takes on an entirely new dimension. We'll discuss some key benefits of being involved in the struggle in the next section, but before we get into that, I want to quickly touch on the various levels of involvement and the actual process of getting involved so you can actually take advantage of those benefits. Keep in mind, as we discuss details in this section and beyond, that different phases of the struggle will incur different penalties and benefits, and I'm focusing on the starting opportunity phase for now. You can always see what penalties and benefits come with the other phases by hovering over them and using the tooltips, and while the main screen shows your own penalties and benefits across the current and potential next phases based on your own level of involvement, you can always select a ruler with a different level of involvement and use the tooltips to see what that level of involvement would mean for you across the current and potential next phases too. That way, if you're trying to figure out if you want to be more involved or less involved, you can at least see the potential consequences. There are 3 levels of involvement when it comes to the Iberian struggle, determined entirely by your culture, your faith, and the location of your realm's capital. In order to see the actual region of the struggle and the involvement level of characters in and outside of it, you just need to select a participant within the struggle region, select the struggle, and take a look at the map. The dark gray regions tell you which rulers and counties are completely uninvolved, while the light gray regions tell you which counties within the struggle region are suffering from negative penalties due to having an uninvolved ruler despite being within the struggle region. These penalties include a reduction in taxes generated from the territory and a reduction in popular opinion in the region as well. Keep in mind that these negatives only apply if the person to whom the title directly belongs is uninvolved. That means a lower level vassal can be involved or be an interloper even though their liege is uninvolved. Keep all this in mind if you're planning on handing out titles within the struggle area. Your vassals do not have to share the same level of involvement as you, and they can reap rewards or be hit by penalties that you might want to keep them away from. So, what makes for an interloper? Marked in blue on the struggle map, these regions belong to any ruler who has their capital in the struggle region but does not have a matching culture and matching faith as listed in the struggle involvement screen. To be clear, if only one matches, you're still considered an interloper. Now, to move your capital, you just need to select a target county and click this button here. Keep in mind that you can only move your capital once in a lifetime, though you can always move your capital to the de jure capital of your primary title. You can swap between equal tier titles as your primary title by selecting your desired primary title and clicking Make Primary. Then you can freely move your capital to the de jure capital of this new primary title, even if you've already moved your capital once before in this current lifetime. Now, interlopers have some benefits, like cheaper prestige costs to declare war within the region, cheaper prestige costs for converting to an involved culture, cheaper piety costs to convert to an involved faith, faster county conversion speeds, and reduced penalties to holding taxes and popular opinion. Again, depending on the phase the struggle is currently in, these penalties and benefits can be a little different, and I'm focused on the opportunity phase that the struggle starts in with either start date. As you can probably tell, the game makes it easy to become fully involved by cheapening the cost of converting both faith and culture. You can easily adopt the culture of your capital through the minor decision to do so, and you can convert to an involved faith just like you would any other faith or using special decisions as well, though again, it's cheaper to do so if you're an interloper. Just make sure the targeted faith and culture are listed in the struggle involvement screen. Alternatively, you can send your children off to be educated by somebody who will convert their faith and culture as necessary, only getting involved once they take the throne for themselves. So again, while moving your capital into the struggle region is enough to become an interloper, you might need to convert your culture and faith to become fully involved. In some cases, one, the other, or both might match to begin with, and you'll just need to move your capital, but in general, those are the three pillars of getting involved: having your capital in the struggle region, having an involved faith as your own, and having an involved culture as your own as well. The benefits of being involved. So, why would you actually make the effort to get involved? Well, apart from taking advantage of the DLC you just paid for, there are quite a few benefits that come with involvement, including access to schemes that are typically locked behind perks, access to alliances that are typically blocked due to religious differences, and a direct impact on how the struggle progresses through its phases. Keep in mind that involved characters do not have access to the Iberian foothold decision that is exclusively available to interlopers and uninvolved characters, and involved characters can face certain negatives too, depending on the current phase of the struggle. For example, during conciliation, agents are less likely to accept invitations into schemes, and during hostility, development, interfaith and intercultural relations, and cultural fascination all take a hit. Depending on your goals, you'll want to steer the ship accordingly, and selecting from the potential next phases of the struggle will tell you exactly what actions you can take to push the struggle one way or another. Whichever next phase progress hits 1000 first is where the struggle goes next, and your contribution is added alongside the contributions of all other involved leaders regardless of their rank. Independent characters, vassals, and more besides can all contribute to the next phase progress as long as they're involved. Uninvolved and interloper characters do not contribute to the progress. We'll touch more on these actual contributions in a bit, but yes, the first benefit of being involved is having an actual impact on the struggle. Beyond this, as mentioned before, each phase has its own set of benefits and penalties categorized across war, culture, faith, and other effects, and while you can certainly read all of these yourself, I want to bring to your attention some of the most impactful ones. The significant reduction to mercenary cost in the opportunity phase means very easy access to strength beyond your usual means, reducing your court expenses if you have a royal court, and maximizing your tax gains by ensuring vassals are properly organized and have the right obligations and contracts will give you easy access to sizable supplementary forces for relatively insignificant costs. In the hostility phase, these savings are limited to mercenaries that match your culture, and with conciliation, there are no such savings on offer. Make sure to take advantage of these reduced costs before somebody else does. If all the mercenaries are already signed on to work for somebody else, then you're out of luck, regardless of how much money you have to spend. The Struggle Clash Casus Belli is another major change. Available across all phases, it's a new type of Casus Belli that removes the need for claim fabrication to a degree, allowing you to go to war for counties that border your own realm, claiming multiple bordering counties at once if you have the piety to afford that declaration of war. During hostility, these wars get cheaper to declare, but during conciliation, they get a bit more expensive. Either way, it's an easy way to go to war without having to fabricate claims. It's an easy way to gain multiple counties in a single war, and keep in mind that these struggle clashes can be declared at any level against any other ruler in the struggle, whether you're fellow vassals under the same liege, a vassal declaring war on a foreign ruler, or an independent ruler declaring war on another independent ruler. The only prerequisite is that you share borders. Keep in mind that during conciliation and compromise, you can only target one county at a time. During hostility, the forced vassalization Casus Belli is unlocked without the need for the forced vassalage perk from the diplomacy lifestyle, and during conciliation and compromise, you gain access to the Iberian reclamation Casus Belli, which allows you to go to war with interlopers and uninvolved characters alike. The compromise phase also denies you access to the invasion and conquest Casus Belli types. Overall, war during the hostility phase is more devastating, with shorter truces, greater damage output, higher siege efficiency, and cheaper war declaration costs. To avoid war, you'll want to take advantage of the option to preemptively purchase a truce. It'll cost gold, but it can stave off threats that you're not yet ready for. You can also get truces during the compromise phase, specifically by sending a ward to another ruler. Should you find yourself in a war you're not ready for, you can always request contract assistance, an ally of sorts fighting alongside you in exchange for gold. On the flip side, you can offer such assistance to others who are currently fighting their own wars, a way to make some money on the side. Another major element to remember is interfaith marriage. Whereas it's typically impossible between Christian and Muslim faith people, it is significantly easier between involved rulers. The negative modifier to acceptance is reduced by a massive amount, and that means you'll be able to actually secure interfaith marriages and the resulting alliances from them. This can be absolutely huge, especially if playing as a smaller realm that needs help from where you otherwise would never have found it. This is made even easier during the conciliation phase due to the increased interfaith opinions, but it's made harder due to a penalty to the same in the hostility phase. As you can see, there are other faith-centered effects, including different tax rates, different levy reinforcement rates, access to prestige and piety through different means, but again, I'm trying to highlight what I think is most outstanding and important across the board here. For example, how culture hybridization is easier during the conciliation phase, but only available if you have the Royal Court DLC as well. Opportunity, conciliation, and compromise are all generally better for interfaith and interculture relations, while hostility, as you might imagine, brings out the friction and encourages the use of faith and culture for conflict instead, often being more costly than beneficial. Back to talk of benefits though. The biggest must be in the access to schemes and actions that are typically locked behind various perks. During Opportunity and Conciliation, you can use the Befriend scheme regardless of your perks. Opportunity phase also gives you access to the Abduct scheme, the Fabricate Hook scheme, and the Claim Throne scheme, again, regardless of which perks you do or don't have. All three of these can be used to help move the phase along too. Freeing prisoners, using hooks, and warring with involved rulers all help move the phases along. You can also commission epics when in the Opportunity phase as long as you're an independent ruler, and you can buy truces as mentioned earlier, and even buy claims using piety. You'll be able to demand payment from any involved rulers who you have a hook on, again easily done with the Fabricate Hook scheme, and you can even cause civil strife to try and distract your opponents. During the conciliation phase, you can make friends by gifting gold and artifacts, and you can even have an extra personal scheme going, while hostility gives you access to an extra hostile scheme, again without needing perks you'd normally need. Finally, don't forget to use the Invite to Activity action in order to make friends, improve relations, and push the phases. I'll leave the rest for you to explore, from the difference in development speeds or impacts to technological developments, but we should move on to the next phase of this video and discuss phases and catalysts. The last big topic of discussion are the phases, the catalysts, and how to actually end the struggle. All things I touched on briefly in the prior sections too, so I'll keep this section short. The ultimate goal for many would be to actually end the struggle. While some might seek to benefit from an ongoing struggle and the various buffs and options it can provide, as detailed earlier, there are benefits to being the one to end the struggle as well. Not only will you gain a fitting nickname, claims, renown, and house or dynasty-specific traits, but you'll also establish certain permanent fixtures as far as the struggle region is concerned. Don't forget that uninvolved and interloper characters have access to the Iberian Foothold decision that also serves to end the struggle, but when it comes to ending the struggle from within, your prerequisites will include the struggle being in a specific phase, and since the different ends leave behind different tools for you to use, you'll likely want to pay attention to the exact details. For example, the Dominance end keeps struggle clashes on the table as easy ways to keep gaining more territory, but makes cultural and faith-based tension more prevalent. Status Quo destroys the Empire of Hispania, so if you wanted to form that, you'll want to avoid this end, so on and so forth. So, paying attention to the phases goes beyond the direct benefits of the phases themselves as discussed previously. It also determines which end might come to fruition, and if you care, you'll want to actively engage in the various catalysts to go between phases. These catalysts can be performed multiple times, and as you can see, some of the decisions here might make you do things that are typically avoided, breaking truces, granting independence, and investing in construction where you might otherwise not. Using abduction schemes might seem like a hostile approach, but using them to freely release your prisoner is actually a catalyst towards conciliation if they're an involved ruler. It's also quite possibly the fastest way to push towards conciliation, since the opportunity phase has the abduct scheme readily available for all involved rulers. Granting counties to locals of involved cultures is a fast way to push towards conciliation too, but be warned, you must select the county, go to the Grant To screen, and then pick from up here. You cannot choose a specific individual, it has to be a random local noble for it to trigger the catalyst. Inviting involved rulers of different faiths and cultures to a feast is always an option too. You just need to be able to afford a feast in order to do so, but it gives a smaller level of progress than the prior actions I'd mentioned compared to the cost that is typically attached to the task. So if you're trying to be cost effective, this might not be the most cost effective approach. Chasing hostility can be a fair sight easier. Breaking truces now have a significant benefit on this front, and you can easily kill abducted involved rulers rather than free them in order to give further pushes towards hostility. Acquiring claims will happen naturally over time, but don't hesitate to fabricate hooks and use them to slowly push towards hostility too. Again, the fabricate hook scheme will be readily available, and you can also release prisoners with hooks on their lieges. These hooks can also be used on people you get along with, so if you have the ritualized friendship tradition especially, you should try and use the befriend scheme on involved rulers, and then the best friend opportunity to acquire strong hooks on that ruler to use time and time again. There are, of course, other smaller moves you can take to push the phase progression in either direction, but these stood out to me as the most noteworthy, with a trick or two here and there. I hope this gives you a good idea of what you're getting into with the Fate of Iberia DLC for Crusader Kings 3. If you have any questions or pointers of your own, feel free to share them down below. The game does an excellent job of explaining most of what's going on through tooltips and the in-game mini tutorial, but there are certainly elements in this video that I think the game might gloss over, or that are otherwise easily missed in the sheer density of options available. For more Crusader Kings and strategy gaming content, don't hesitate to subscribe to the channel. If you're not sure who to play as with this new DLC, you might want to watch the video I've linked on screen right here. Otherwise, as always, a massive thanks goes out to all of the channel members and patrons who've been supporting the channel on a monthly basis. Y'all keep us alive and running smoothly. And of course, a big ol' thanks goes out to each and every one of you for watching. Until next time, cheers.